Everything looks different now. This time around, I'll leave you lonely.
Hey guys, so I have not made a video in about 3 weeks because I was on vacation. I went to Seattle, then I went to Denver, working on my wife's green card, and you know what, just having a good time. And I didn't feel like making videos during that time. So I'm back in China now, and everything's almost back to normal, right? Vacation's almost over. So today I wanted to discuss something. Now the title of this video is called The Coming Civil War. And I'm going to make a series of videos explaining why we are facing a civil war. I believe that it will happen maybe within, sorry about that, maybe one or 2 years. At least we're starting to see the opening salvos right now of this war. So let's back up a bit and explain way before 2016, which I think you'll agree with me was one hell of a ride. Let's go back and explain a little bit about human behavior. So there are 4 kinds of people. Again, oversimplification. There are 4 kinds of people in the world. The first kind of person is the kind of person that says, you know what, I don't care. This has nothing to do with me. Just leave me alone, right? Just leave me alone. I just, oh my God. I want to go home. I want to watch my TV. I want to go to work. I want to have a beer with a couple of the guys. That's it. Those people, surprisingly, are a minority. And so we remove them from the equation. The next kind of people are the kind of people that say, the situation is not good. The situation is dire. What can we do to fix it? But it's not just what can we do to fix it. It's how can I take the solutions for the individual, coalesce them with the solutions for the continuity. So if I take the continuity and the individual, how can I harmonize them? How can I synchronize them so that what is good for the individual is good for the collective, or for the collective whole, if you will, even though that's kind of repetitive. So what can I do to make sure that both what's good for the individual is good for the collective? And if it's not good, then we need to have a discussion about it. We need to come to some sort of an understanding whether morality needs to be changed, ethics needs to be changed, and a good example of this would be slavery, right? Another good example would be suffrage. So those are good examples of what I mean when I say what's good for the collective or for the individual is good for the whole. Now, there's a third type of person. And this type of person is a minority again, but sorry, I seem to have a runny nose, but a very, I dare to say evil minority. These are the kinds of people that say, no, it's wrong. Your situation is wrong. You don't have a good job. Sorry, you don't have a good job. You don't have a good home. You don't have the life that you deserve to have. The life that you should have because of those people over there, right? It's because of those people. So it's either because of the Jewish people, right? The Jews, those evil Jews, or it's because of the Japanese, or it's because of the Muslims, or it's because of the take your pick, right? It doesn't really matter. Right now, it's the white men. White men are the reason why you don't have what you have. It doesn't really matter that you didn't go to school, you didn't work as hard, maybe you have 8 children. No. It's rich white men are the reason why you don't have what you're supposed to have. Now, these type of people point the finger, they scapegoat. And they do this for a reason that we'll discuss in a minute. Acquisition and centralization of power, which is what fascism and socialism are. And I'm going to do a video later detailing exactly what fascism is so that my dear liberal friends can understand why Trump is not a fascist. It's just so laughable because it's like, God, do you guys not know how to use Google? Do you not know how to open up a dictionary? Most people don't know how to use dictionaries anymore. It's very sad. But there's a fourth kind of person. And this is where we're going to have a problem with the Civil War. So with the fourth kind of person. Those are the kind of people that you see and say, you know what? yeah, you're right. My life is terrible. My life is shitty. My life is, oh my God, yeah, you're right. It's because of those people over there. We have to get those Jews or those white men, or we have to get those Muslims, or we have to get the Latinos, or we have to take your pick, right? Those kinds of people are the ones that act out. And it's always been this way. And I'd like to point out that there's a distribution in terms of intelligence as well. People who are on the genius level, 140 and above, constitute less than 0.5% of the population. It's a very small amount. People who are normal, that means 0 to, actually it's more like 90 to 110 is considered normal. I know we say 100 is normal, but really you can dip a little below and a little above, right? Because there are different kinds of intelligence. IQ is only one type. Your average college professor being about 120, your average college student being about, actually today it's about 100 to 110, right? The people I'm talking about function in that category, right? They're the people that cannot see 3 or 4 steps ahead. They can only see tomorrow or this month or this year at best. They cannot project long term, which is why they usually don't go to medical school or law school or whatnot. Or they usually don't have successful careers at it precisely because of this. And these are the types of people that will protest. But it's not just protest. They will riot. They will loot. They will burn down buildings. They will beat people. Just as we see right now with Milo and I don't know how to say his name, Yanukovych. The students at the university protested his hate speech, and there were people maced. There were people beaten. There was one person that almost died, was beaten with an inch of his life. A woman that was beaten, and her fiance or her husband, was almost killed. He had his liver ruptured. Very serious, because they wanted to silence him. This is only going to get worse. This is not going to get any better. And the reason is because these people are focusing their anger. And there's really very little you can do to stop this. This is, and I think I made a video before, if not, I'll make another one, about generations. My generation, Generation X, okay? This I started, and I blame the baby boomers for this. The baby boomer generation were the ones that were at Woodstock protesting the Vietnam War, which, by the way, I would have protested too, because I didn't think the Vietnam War was a good idea. But nonetheless, it is history that happened. I can't change that. But these baby boomers are the ones that grew up, and they really didn't, they're the ones that started this whole, I will major in feminism, or I will major in gender studies, or I will major in, or cultural anthropology is the other one, right? So these people didn't really know what to do with their lives, and they became teachers, right? Because you can't do anything else. They became teachers, and they taught the next generation. Now, that generation is the millennial generation. And the millennial generation is the generation that was born right at the cusp of the internet, right before the internet became good. I know, because as Generation X, I was born before the internet. And this is crucially important, because it's the baby boomer generation, not all of them, again, it's a minority of them, with the majority of the millennial generation. The millennial generation was born, or were born, during a depression. Or not a depression, a recession, They were born in very difficult economic times, where their parents were losing their houses, they were losing their jobs, they were having to relocate, or they were having very difficult time. And then they went to the university, and of course, thanks to the policies of Obama, the recovery, which we're supposed to have a great recovery, was the worst recovery in history, to the point where we're going to have a Great Depression very soon. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, there is something Trump can do about it, but let's face it, it's extremely difficult. Now, this generation, the millennial generation, they're full of disappointment, because number one, they've never had to fight for anything. They don't know. They don't understand the struggles that we saw. Again, I grew up in World War II, post-World War II Germany. I'm not that old, and I grew up going to the Soviet Union before the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was there when the Berlin Wall fell, and I had little pieces of it at my parents' house, and so I saw all of that firsthand. As Generation X, we lived through some, not as bad as the previous generations, but we lived through some pretty bad times. Millennials, they haven't done that. They lived through a recession. They lived through 9/11. Then they lived through a disastrous recovery to the point where they're facing a depression and they don't have any prospects. They're not going to get good jobs. And they also were raised with participation trophies, right? Everybody's good. Everybody's great. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. That doesn't prepare you for the real world, because the real world doesn't care. The real world doesn't care about you. And you can't force the rest of the world to do so. And this is, by the way, it's not an American problem. This is West. The entire West has this problem. Lo and behold, comes Generation Z. That's the next generation. Z because we don't really have a name for it yet. You know, generation baby boomers, we have their name. Generation X never really got a proper name, so we stayed Generation X. The millennial generation was Generation Y, which we named it millennial, and then comes Generation Z, which we don't know. But what we do know about Generation Z is that they are overwhelmingly, and I'm talking in the 90%, conservative. They do not like these liberal policies. They don't like that the liberals right now are forcing you to be a certain way. This is causing a lot of tension between the generations, and it's going to explode in violence, particularly because we're going to see that Generation Z is, by 2020, they're going to be a voting age. This is huge. This is huge because the demographics, again, are changing in America. They're swinging way back to the conservative side. The liberals don't want that because they're used to having their way. So not only, and I feel sorry for the millennial generation, not only are their prospects very bad, not only did their teachers do them a great disservice, didn't educate them properly, didn't teach them that you have to man up because the world isn't going to treat you with flowers and pixie dust or whatever. So not only that, they don't have good prospects. They're not going to get good jobs. There's a depression coming. And now that's going to trigger a civil war. It's going to trigger it, and it's very unfortunate. And of course, it's going to be, my prediction, California-led. And I think what's going to happen, and I'll talk about this in greater detail, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to riot to the point where Trump will have no choice but to send in the National Guard. At that time, and mark my words, this is going to happen. This is what they want. And so they're kind of dragging Trump in to initiate this. And so they can have an excuse to impeach him or get him out of office or do a military coup, which is hilarious. Like, the military is predominantly Republican, so I don't know what they're thinking about, but whatever. So, but again, these are people who don't understand history. And certainly don't understand policy, and their understanding of topics is very superficial. But what's going to happen is something's going to happen that people are going to die. All right, like, there's going to be a high-profile death, or there are going to be many low-profile deaths in a riot where they're going to have to bring in the National Guard. The governor of California is going to reject it. Trump is going to then supersede him to order, but the National Guard answers directly to the governor, not to the president. At that time, he's going to have to bring the military. And the National Guard in California is going to have to make a very difficult decision. Is it part of the military, or is it the Army of California? This is where we're going to see an escalation, because then you may have other states such as, and there are not that many, but you will have other states such as Washington and New York that may initiate similar phases. And California, I doubt that the rest of the states will do this, but California is going to declare an exit of the United States, at which time Trump is going to be very similar to Lincoln, in which he will have no choice but to say, the hell, you're not getting out. This is a union and we're staying. And that's where you're going to see a massive civil war being triggered. Now, there are ways around this, but it's very difficult. And hope relies on if we can postpone this enough for Generation Z to grow up and tip the balance. If we can get the 30 or 40 or 50 million illegal immigrants, I happen to personally think is as high as 50 million, out of the United States in a mass deportation very quickly, we can bring California back into control. And I say control, I don't mean Republican control, I mean common sense. California will always be liberal. But even though it wasn't always, but it will certainly be more liberal than the rest of the country. And this is why we have different states. We have different states because if I don't want to live in one state, for example, my wife likes Seattle. I'm uncomfortable in Seattle. To be honest with you, I can't be myself. Number one, I'm not liberal. Number two, if I want to wear a Trump hat, I don't know if someone's going to throw something at me now. I fear violence. And I shouldn't because this is my America. And that's messed up. So I'm going to move to, we agreed to move to Colorado, which is a swing state. So I find it a little bit more comfortable there, even though Denver's a little bit more liberal than I'd like, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. There's a huge homeless population issue there, which is, you can see accompanies almost every Democratic city or a city that are under Democrats rule. So I'm gonna stop this video now. I just wanted to preface why we're going to have a civil war and what it is. Why I should say why it's very likely we will have one. There is a possibility we won't have one, but I still believe that if things continue the way they're going now, yeah, we're gonna see pew pew in America, and that's really unfortunate because you're gonna see millions of deaths. That is. To a certain extent, it needs to happen because we need to understand yet again, because I think we didn't learn, socialism doesn't work. Fascism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. How many times will the world face this? Apparently Europe didn't learn shit from 2 world wars and from 1,000+ years of fighting. Europe hasn't learned shit. Oh my God, I feel so bad for Europe right now. Europe is also going to see a civil war, but it's going to be far worse than America's civil war. Europe is going to tear itself apart, and the European Union is going to fight like a rabid animal to stay alive. It's unfortunate, but that is the way it is. So anyway, thank you for watching. Look forward to my next few videos detailing the Civil War and what you can do to prepare for it, because I suggest you prepare, right? Guns, ammunition, food, water, and above all, health and training knowledge. That will get you through all difficult times. And if nothing happens, hey, you prepared yourself. Now you're better off. So anyway, my website will be started to update soon. So that's www.dsunion.org. That's dsunion.org. So please comment, like this video, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. Goodbye.